So we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Finance Committee. It's 7 o'clock Thursday, okay, the 20th. So we're just reviewing, we're going to go ahead and review some notes that...
Should I just read them out?
Sure thing.
Can I ask something first before we even start this?
Sure.
What's the story with Valerie?
I don't know. I haven't heard.
Okay,
I didn't see any emails.
Nope, me neither.
okay. Because Brian brought the paperwork to Jess for her to be sworn in.
Maybe she's not
Nobody
back in
has
town.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have email from her. I have some contact information for her. All right, so David writes to us and he says, attached, please find a draft copy of the August warrant. The select board is due to postpone the 8/3 date at their 7/26 meeting. The select board is likely to sign the warrant at that meeting. So if I may ask you to make your recommendations, that would be fine. So he wants us to vote on the warrant. And then he says, I've been asked to provide a summary of essential, non-essential services. This is a complicated matter as each department has its legal mandates, and reduction, elimination of a function may have repercussion for taxpayers and the government organization. The most useful way for me to provide you this information is to attach the service delivery plan, a comprehensive summary of Hadley's government. Okay, thanks, David. I wanted him to distill that into a more digestible chunk. Capital Planning Committee is scheduled to meet Monday, 7/24 at 5:30 p.m. and are likely to make their recommendations on the warrant. So he wants us to work on the warrant for
Right.
today. So,
But we were at the select board meeting where we said that we would work on finding ways to support the full-time fire department, and we were to bring that to them on Wednesday.
right, and we're going to do that too.
Okay.
I mean, this is not going to take long. All of this is, pretty...
What we've been
we've
discussing.
been discussing. So let's just go through them one by one.
So one of the things, though, is the date, too. We have to think about, not just voting on this, is the date for the meeting,
For which meeting?
the special town meeting that we're going to have this at.
Well, that's what they're going to decide next
Yeah,
time.
I would like, one of the things I was thinking is for a date, which I was going to say to the select board, is I wanted to make sure that that the land, knowing if the land's any good or not, is back, the borings.
Oh,
And I thought Mike had said it was gonna be until, did he say? Made it sound like it wasn't gonna be until August. I'm thinking, we wouldn't be able to have a meeting until like the 24th or the 31st of August. It's gonna be late August. Because I'm thinking we're not gonna find out until like the week of the 14th or something.
well, okay, so we could pass over that article and vote on the other three.
Yeah, I mean, I could
If you
even.
feel more comfortable
I
doing
could
that.
even vote on it with just stating that I would, with something, assuming that all is well with the borings, I would put a vote in, and would be a game changer, and I would have to, and then amend it on the floor, I guess, if it was to,
Well, so, do you want to skip over that one and wait, or do you want to vote on it
Well,
with
I'm not-
conditional?
with the conditional, I think, and I'm not sure if we change the date, are we gonna, and something comes up, can we have it switched?
Well, at the end of the day, we're only making a recommendation anyway,
Right,
so.
right.
But
Okay.
it'll make David happy if we vote,
I'm comfortable voting, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
okay? You're
Yep,
comfortable?
I am,
Okay, well, you want to,
okay. But, as far as going down the thing, I wanted to point out where I'm at on some of these, just to discuss them in a whole.
well, why don't we make a motion, Article 1, and then have a discussion and then vote.
Okay.
What is Article 1?
Article 1, Senior Center, to see if the town will appropriate 1.8 to add to the funds already approved at the fall 2016 town meeting to pay the cost of designing, constructing, and equipping a senior center, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing or otherwise provided, or take other action relative thereto. So the motion is moved that the town would appropriate the $1.8 million. And so there's the narrative here, and
But we're not even sure we're gonna have that meeting in August, right? Early August?
we're having a meeting in August. It may not be early August, it may be late August or early September.
I know, but as much as I feel like they need their money, and I'm not against it, personally, as a finance person, I have a hard time standing up there asking them for money, more money, whether it's capital projects or not, when we're thinking of cutting other things to provide a full-time fire department.
Well,
So,
that's why we vote.
okay,
That's why we want to take it to town meeting and let them decide.
right, but I'm still voting whether I agree with it or not. So it's gonna go to town meeting regardless, but if I'm asked, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so any further discussion on that?
No, I'm gonna, pretty much, I'm gonna look at it as, in my priorities, with the needs versus the wants, and I'm trying to, in my head, come up with the priorities on where we're gonna come up with the money first. We can't come up with anything right now, and, we're trying, and my priority is the safety, and then, getting the town fixed with the, IT and the HR, so,
I agree with that 100%.
okay, that's,
Okay, so,
all right. So I make a motion, are we gonna? go
well, I
ahead?
want to make sure,
Yes.
you have to record it so that David has something
Oh, yeah.
before we record it and then forget what we said.
You can always watch the tape again.
You can always watch the tape again, yeah.
I do.
Do you? You go back and watch
Not for
yourself?
ours. No, I can't watch Northampton, but for Northampton, the meetings I'm involved in.
All right, looks like he's ready now. So go ahead.
Oh, well, you go ahead,
All right, so we're going to vote on this article. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
3 to
All
1.
right, 3-1.
I should say, until we have further, my mind could change if other things come into play.
Okay, so Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, authorize the treasurer to borrow, transfer funds from available, or otherwise provide $400,000 to purchase the property for municipal purposes. So this would be the spot where we would possibly put a fire substation in lieu of putting it on the North Hadley Hall site. So this is the 9 acres, the Hanoski property. Well, actually, so there's 2 things happening here. So there's 2 and 3, right? Article 2 is, do we want to buy the Hanoski property? Article 3 is, do we want to have a fire substation? And so those are 2 separate things to think about.
So here's some of my points that I think about when I think of that piece of property. One is, if the land comes in and it says it's not good, then it's a game changer at that point. I wouldn't want it. But say it is good, then I'm not for necessarily, I feel like the fire substation might be in the same ballpark as all the other items that we have here. But so I didn't want to spend any more money. But the thing is, you're going to need something down the road. If you let this go, you will have to, down the road, fix it. So in this particular case, I'm almost for taking it now. You know that there's a buyer. If you decided against it, then you could sell it. But once you let it go, you let it go.
That's right.
So.
And one thing we can't grow in Hadley is more land.
Right. Look at the school had purchased that land a long time ago, and then finally, looking to do something with it. I just think that we could always sell it, but we can't always get it back. So,
Right. If we needed the money back, we could
Yeah,
sell it. and we-
unless it's a problem with the land itself. then I would,
And we don't have the boring results back from that
right,
yet.
but I'm gonna
Well,
assume,
maybe the chief just came in, maybe,
I don't think so.
you have any results on, not
Not
done
yet.
yet?
No,
Okay.
Okay.
August 7th.
Okay, yeah.
So, nothing comes fast enough, chief.
I know.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Again, if I'm not gonna stand up there
Mhm.
and say, okay, to the senior center, we have no money, you're not telling me where you're getting the money, regardless it's a
Yep.
great deal or not, if I can't support one, I'm not gonna support the other.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's why we vote.
Mhm.
Okay?
Are we ready?
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye. All opposed?
Aye. 3-1?
3-1, the other way. Okay, so fire substation. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, authorize the treasurer to borrow or otherwise provide $810,800 to build a fire substation and pay for associated cost.
Is that in the North Hadley property?
This is in the North Hadley property still, because this is the original motion.
Well, you can't really vote for that one if the first line item goes through.
Well, but they're separate on this particular warrant, right?
so, I'm thinking, especially since there's time, I mean, even once you get the land, it's gonna take more time.
Well, I also
I-
noticed that the original value was 400 change, now it's 800 and change.
Oh,
So,
Yeah, but 300 of it was for the soil of the land. And what was,
Close to 400,000 was for
This-
site, additional site work.
yeah, so the soil is not the
so it's kind of a
800,000.
wash which property it goes on, assuming the other property is good to build on.
yeah. I just feel like you know, they can come back at a later time. I'm not against the spending of the money right now, rather not spend any extra. I'd rather fund the,
You can't,
and then
well, you want the substation, but my guess is that if you go on that new property, it's not gonna be for the same amount that the town has already voted for North Hadley. I can guarantee you it's probably not gonna be the same dollar amount. Because one, by the time you get to it, prices change all the time, right, with contracting? Two, they're gonna try to figure out what else, something else that they can do there.
Well, the nice part about the Hanaski property is it's much bigger, so you can have your fire substation there and other things down the road.
Right, this is what I'm trying to say, is that you vote that money in for North Hadley, but you buy the land for the other thing. That money that you've put aside for North Hadley is no way near enough what they're gonna want to put the
Well, I mean, it's
substation.
irrelevant anyway because the money's site specific, so you're gonna have a whole new vote for a new amount when you're on the new property.
So then again, you want more money
Oh.
from a
But-
town that can't even balance their general budget and support a full-time fire department.
Which is what we're after in
The plan
general.
is not to change the structure at all. The only additional cost would be, we asked the OPM for what it would cost to pick up from where they're at right now. So the additional site work that would need to be done.
And then the longer you wait, prices
Well, yeah,
change.
there's definitely I think it's around $50,000 every 6 months or something like that you're looking at as
Exactly.
an increase, but
Would you be able to stand up
that's.
after the
that's-
land passed and say, I make an amendment to the motion to build that and the funds that have already been
Correct, that's-
approved
yes.
onto the other site?
So the site, all the stuff up to now would be about $32,000 additional. And then if if we didn't have all that site work there, which they're assuming we wouldn't, we still had a shortfall of about $198,000 in building needs. So not site work needs, but the building needs.
Would that 190 transfer to the Hanaski property as well?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, there's been talk about requesting, CPA funding for part of the, I mean, it depends on how much is the
Everybody
town paying
wants
for the whole
CPA
thing.
funding. There's only so much to go around.
So I think at that point, if we did get the 400,000 for the new land, we would then come back in the following town meeting, depending if schedule works out, special fall town meeting, to have the new article to basically refund, as it were, because like I said, it's site specific. So we'd have to have a whole new article to approve funding for the total amount for the new property that we just purchased. That said, we should still consider this article in the context of if the 400,000 were not to go through, would this 800,000 amount for the North Hadley property be recommended by us. We can, obviously it is not applicable if the 400,000 goes through, we all understand that. So we can amend it on the floor, we can just, scratch it at that point. But if the 400,000 does not go through, do we recommend this 810 for the North Hadley site? I think that's the question. in
Oh
front
yeah,
of us.
that's exactly how it's put up. So
Yep.
should we go ahead and make our vote?
More discussion on it, or?
I mean, I don't have any further questions on it.
I have to, I'm abstaining anyways, because it's right next to my own property.
You don't want to make coffee for the chief in the morning? Come on.
I can bring him coffee. I can wave to him as he's getting it through Donut Man.
Chief, did you want to say anything further about it, or are you all set?
I mean, the 810,000, you have to remember that includes everything. That's all the alternates, but.
Does it
so
include ripping that old building down?
That was never part of that.
So, and how does if it was to go through as written here, they would put the fire substation in the little ball field that's right next to it?
Correct.
And how does that affect the resale value of the existing building?
So we did the requested setback by the gentleman who was interested in purchasing it so that he would have enough room for parking. But, I mean, it's a tight space. I mean, we've known that since day one, but we didn't have an opportunity with this Hynoski property, so that's why they're pushing forward to see if that's an option.
And what's the difference between this property and the Hanoski property in terms of long-term issues with water and drainage and that sort of thing?
There's more room on there, so you can look at it two ways. You can, this MS4, which I don't even know if it's, according to Marlo, it might not even be going into place right now, but you can do retention ponds versus having to do all the underground retention.
Isn't there a lot of maintenance in retention ponds?
There is. So you can see what happens, you get the cattails growing up and all of a sudden it's considered wetlands, and so you have to pretty much maintain them, but it's a lot less expensive to build it.
With but how much ongoing maintenance is that?
It's mowing it, keeping it cleaned out. Like you see over at where Starbucks is and everything, they're always cleaning that out, and next door to it at Chipotle.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's privately done,
Mm-hmm.
not cost to the town.
Well, and it's supporting all those businesses, so presumably they have.
Yeah, but it's
Somebody's paying
cheaper
to
than going the other way is what you're saying.
it's cheaper, but then the other thing, the question that's come up from the architect is, does the town foresee additional use of that property in the future? So if you're putting in retention ponds, is that then going to take away the space that may be usable for, if down the road you decided you wanted to expand on that property, or if you want to put in ballparks and some other stuff that folks have been talking about? So that's something you have to consider as well.
And in terms of the physical locations of the two properties, which is easier for the fire department to get around town on?
Well, this whole thing started with the municipal building committee. That was the number one property that, when I was asked to go around town and take a look at properties up north, and there was a for sale sign on it, and I went right to the municipal building committee. They went up. That's when we were looking at the Montgomery Road site at the time, and they said they completely agreed because of the location. It's right across from Stockbridge, so you're talking about minutes to get a truck down to Route 9, because that's the direction they go anyways. So it's definitely a very good site for it.
So for whatever reason, if it failed, the purchase of the new property, and then the article failed here, Article 3 for this, what would you do?
Basically, the town still approved to build it. So then what we would have to do is we would have to explain to the town exactly what you would be getting by value engineering and by cutting 800 square feet off of the structure that we have. So there would be no dispatch center, there'd be no kitchen, there'd be no community space or meeting space for the department. You basically have
A
a
garage?
steel box. There would be asphalt shingle roofing, there wouldn't be any additional. The biggest problem is trying to get it through historical. It might not pass that muster because it's literally gonna look like a a Square Morton building, which is, I mean, it's certainly fine to put trucks in it, but I don't know if it's something that you want to see up in that part of town, or if the rest of the people do.
But this particular
Yeah,
motion
take
only
quite a bit off.
refers to the
That's
North Hadley Hall site, not the Hanoski property. So-
Correct, because we're waiting for the borings or the, you know, if they see that there's suitable soil there and we're not gonna have to preload, which they don't think we're going to, you're taking out, the number that I got was a bit higher than the 300,000 that I've been hearing lately. It was more around 400 plus for the additional site work. But, I mean, that would wash that property, you know, if you had to purchase that property.
No, anything further?
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining anyway, so.
Ready?
So should we have our vote? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm on the fence a little bit.
You're on the fence?
Yeah, yeah.
One abstention.
And one
So-
abstention, so three to one abstention. All right, so now we have the new library construction. So we do want to congratulate the library commission for, you know, collecting that grant. They worked very hard on that to bring
Absolutely.
money into the town. And they also are having a capital campaign to raise further money to, you know, take the essentially, you know, take some more burden off the town.
GIC.
What, are you okay?
No, I was for the insurance purpose.
Oh, so the current library is actually in somewhat of a violation because they're not handicapped accessible.
Mhm,
I mean, you can get in if you're handicapped, but you can't use the restroom.
mhm.
You know, it is, once again, tough. This is,
What's the vacant buildings gonna cost us all? Once all these new buildings are built?
well, the library building that it's currently in is, you know, structurally okay. That can be used for something.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hooker School will disappear for the new library to be built. You know, part of this money includes the removal of that building that's next to the library now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the senior center is going to go in the back. That
Yeah,
building's
you-
going to disappear, and the library is going to get built in a new building there, and then the
Mhm.
library building is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the
We
Russell
have another
School.
building across the street. We have,
Yeah, no, I know, but that's historical that those buildings were allowed to fall into disrepair.
so, yes, so that's why today we need to think about those
Yeah.
things.
Well, one of the things that I haven't really seen is any kind of budget for the maintenance of all these new buildings.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
But,
May I make a comment?
go ahead,
Mhm.
please.
If you transfer the maintenance of the existing Hooker School to the two new buildings, you'd still probably have a surplus,
I don't think so.
because they're being built as efficient buildings and
I agree that some things will be cheaper, but what we have bare minimum for maintenance for these buildings, it's not enough to cover.
I mean, carpets need to be replaced,
It's just
buildings need
not
to be
enough.
painted. It's like roofs need to be fixed. It never, I mean, come look at my house, it never ends.
But the municipal building committee has been charged with putting plans in place to keep the new buildings on a maintenance schedule. And also, they've tried to change tactics insofar as what they're doing with the building so that that's not an ongoing issue, like going to the metal roofs as opposed to the asphalt, things like that, so that good money's not going after bad. I can't tell you how much fuel we go through to be in a cold building. Just because the furnace is over 50 years old, it's been cracked and welded twice, and we still can't have programs throughout the entire building. When you put everything on one level and you put energy efficient systems in there, you're creating much more usable space designed to be operationally cheaper with more happening than what we're doing now.
Yeah, I agree, but I still have not really seen a budget that suggests how much that's really gonna cost. Right, I mean, it's nice that they're thinking about it, but no one said it's gonna be, you know, you're gonna have to increase that budget by X amount to keep this building and X amount to keep that building. I mean, let me look at the Russell School. It's from the outside, it's a beautiful building, and I'm told, I haven't been inside it myself, but I'm told it's a total loss inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, that's crazy to me. I mean, I was in Italy 2 years ago. You know, you can go to Venice and see buildings that have been there for 1,000 years that are perfectly in full use, and they're sitting in water. You know, you can go to Rome and see buildings that are 2,000 years old that are still in use.
Well, so do you continue to pour money into buildings that are
Well,
falling further into
At this point, it
disrepair?
doesn't make sense. I agree, but it's disheartening that
You have to
over
have
the
a plan.
last 100 years, the town has pretty much looked the other way on building maintenance to the point where you get to that situation where it's not worth it anymore. Right? That's the thing. If you keep after it all the time, little by little, then you could have buildings forever.
But we're beyond that.
At this point, but that's why I want to make sure that these new buildings, 50 years from now, I don't want the finance committee to be sitting here going, what the hell happened to that new senior center and that new library from 50 years ago? They're falling apart, and
Look
Yeah.
at your police station, your fire station. How many years ago was that built? And now we're crunching for funds to keep that up to par and give them what they need over there.
Because it wasn't done right the first time.
It's a building that
No,
the
I
town of Hadley
understand.
owns.
and it's
the
a rather
roof-
important one too.
The roofs need to get replaced, need to get replaced, regardless if it was built to specs that they wanted to then, it still needs to be upkeep.
Right. I mean,
Oh, no, I'm not arguing whether anything needs to be upkeep, I get it.
I think the problem is that the past finance committee was afraid to go to the town and say you need a tax override.
well, we haven't gotten to that bit in the.
Well, if it gets there, I hope you all stand up and vote for
I
it.
will certainly vote for it. I'll speak to it.
So I agree, I'd
um,
like to see some numbers for the building maintenance. I think that'll be an ongoing issue. But
Yeah.
is it a concern right now for voting on this article?
No.
No.
No. That's
But down the road is a concern,
right. It's just,
because it's a part of your general budget that we can't balance come every
Yeah,
year.
it'll be part of our jobs to stay on top of it. But is there more discussion on whether we want to approve or recommend this new library?
I think we can vote, right?
Yeah, even though the library, it's an awesome grant, it's great in that they got half. It is a really great thing. It's just one of those things, if you get an opportunity to buy $1 million home and you get it for half price, but if you can't afford $500,000, you have no business buying it.
That's right. Just because they're giving it to you doesn't mean you.
If you can't
Have to-
afford it, then you have no business buying it, even if you get it for half price, and
But-
that's where
So I would argue with a similar argument towards the building maintenance, that while that's on a micro scale, this is on a macro scale, that we need to
Yeah.
invest in our town to make sure that later down the road, we're not kicking ourselves for not having kept it up well enough.
Mhm.
And this is an extremely intelligent investment if we're getting 4.9 million to cover half of it. If at all in any way we can possibly make this work, this is the equivalent of not letting the building go into disrepair. This is that moment now that we'll be looking at 50 years from now when we really need the new library, or 10 years from now.
And we won't need
In
a
10
senior center in
years?
50 years?
In 10
voted in
years,
favor.
you're gonna see people not picking books up. 15 years.
Well,
Sorry.
but libraries evolve, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
They become computer centers
You know
and
what
so on.
saddens me? You said you had a library at the elementary school, you had a library at the high school. Do they use them anymore? No, they cut them actually.
Well,
Didn't
see,
they?
here's my thing.
Well,
Is
go
you
ahead.
got wants and needs. Is it a want or is it a need?
It's a
Two.
want, in my opinion.
The other thing, besides the town needing to put up matching funds for what the grant is, the town then gets a building, one of the best maintained buildings in town, that they can use for other things like the media, like Park and Recs, like expanding office buildings,
We can
meeting
use the senior
spaces.
center for some of that too, though.
Not in the condition it's in, there's
No, but the new building.
Yes, absolutely. But those places need their own home space for storage of equipment. And having meetings in our building is fine. Giving them room to put twice this size room full of cameras, we don't have that kind of space. We didn't budget
Or
for that.
maybe
when
for
we
that,
built
but, like for, occasional park and rec activity.
it. Activity
does
is one
not
thing. Central
include storage
permanent
areas.
space.
Well, and so that also brings up, if there's a new library space, then the old library space becomes available for a variety of things.
Right.
Like storage of his cameras and so on.
Well, we still have the other school that down the road that they're gonna be looking at for something to do. You know, we have another empty building,
Which one are you talking about, the
Russell
Russell?
School.
Well, I heard the estimate to make that safe and usable is $10 million.
I'm saying it's not gonna, for storage, you could use it,
Wow.
if you're talking storage.
But they're talking space for these people to have their functional offices too. And that building's usable now instead of down the road when you have to put in new plumbing and new heating and things like
The
that.
existing library.
Yep.
Yes,
And the library serves, a vast majority of people in town.
all ages, yeah.
And I see that the library has a youth programmer.
Yes, it does.
In combination with that youth programmer, you could probably add the programming for the,
It's very possible.
there you go.
All right, so
It's just gonna be tough, you're gonna have, with all the, if everything goes through, you're gonna have every article, say it goes through, or a lot of the money, and then you want the override on top of that. It's gonna be really hard for people to turn around and say, okay,
Exactly.
so,
but they get,
The
like
override-
us, they get the vote at town meeting.
yeah, and the override comes later too. And then in that override is where you're really looking at funding the staffing for public safety, you're looking for the IT, you're looking for that. So what
Well-
I'm thinking is someone gonna wanna actually have their taxes increase that much? And
Well,
No,
the-
'cause
someone said
bottom
something,
line,
my
it's not-
father-in-law said something to me, oh, the taxes are going up. I said, you haven't seen anything yet.
Well-
It's true, it's the bottom,
You haven't
regardless
seen it
if
yet.
it's capital or not, capital projects not, they look at the bottom line
Yeah.
figure. And we are, as a board, are supposed to be advising what is best. Okay, so everything's important for everybody in this town, but what can we justify doing at this point?
So we have two different budget lines. You have the interest that you're gonna pay on loans, that's one
Mhm.
type of override, and that one goes away after a while, right? When those loans are paid off in 20 years, then you're not paying those taxes. But then there's the kind of override that we're talking about for the fire department and for the HR.
Operational override.
That's forever.
That's right.
So that's a different story. But on the other side,
Your houses are gonna be here for a long time, hopefully, too.
I
If
hope
we have
so.
a fire department to put the fire out when it
Now,
starts on
it has to
fire.
be said that Hadley has some of the lowest mill rate taxes in the valley. So we already have extremely low taxes
I know, but
compared to
people
our
don't.
neighboring towns.
You look at your seniors that are fixed incomes, okay, and they're talking about water and sewer rates possibly going up because it's been quite a few years since that has happened. Their social security and their pensions aren't increasing,
I understand that.
and so those seniors were the farmers of this town, what made this town what it is.
And those are the seniors that use the senior center that they voted for.
Not all of them.
Well, a lot of them certainly.
Vast majority of them did, yeah. It was a grassroots.
But when it comes down to it, they will not. I pretty much say they're not gonna vote for an override for operational expenses on top of all these things.
Well, that's why we have to make two plans. A
I
lot of
know.
this stuff's already been voted on, actually, so,
It was voted to approve for them to see if they could get the grant. It was not voted on whether the town was gonna match the monies or not. I think the first time it came around, it was shot down.
Mhm.
Okay, so then it came back when the senior center was wanting to get their new building. So the library actually started a chain of events. I think they did a great job. I commend them for doing what they did and all the research and trying to do all this stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm against it or for it. I'm just saying, is it right now the right time for it?
Can I
Well-
just make one point? A lot of people are needing to be re-informed that the information that went out at that last town meeting where they had all of those articles and they said to the townspeople, if all of these things pass and the library too, when it comes back, you will be paying an extra $95 a year on the average $319,000 home.
But we all know it's not that anymore.
Well, I don't know that, but
If all these other things go through, it won't be that.
I'm saying the information that was given before included that, what they had ballparked
Yes.
at 3.5.
Mhm.
So in essence, they knew it was coming and still brought it up to at that point, 95. And everything still went through. So I'm just.
That was
bringing-
that wasn't a guaranteed figure.
It's what they gave
It's what
to
they
the
gave.
public at that point in time. That's the only point
Mm-hmm.
I'm making, is that a lot of people already knew that if that came down the pike, that would be the estimate that they would be included. And I just want to remind everybody that that's,
Okay, so the other thing that should be mentioned is, the town is our community, and do we want to have a senior center? Yes, that's been voted on. Do we want to have a library? I think most people do. You could live in your house and have no services, but that's kind of ridiculous. So it's like,
But we all have an opinion, so
Yeah,
we can
that's
take
true.
a vote
I mean-
and decide what you want to do, but.
all right, so shall we vote? Go ahead.
So just to clarify too, to help me out, I want to understand how we view ourselves as a committee. Because our discussion of, how we communicate this all to the voters, and we're anticipating an override, the next discussion. So how can we fund all of this and then later ask the voters for an override? But when I'm thinking through what is financially responsible for the town, I do think it includes both all these capital plans and the override for the operational budget, and that we can do both. So I don't want to be, maybe this is personally, but to extend it to the committee, I don't want to be trying to vote on capital projects or operating, projects based on how we think the voters might vote on other stuff. It's our responsibility to have the oversight of everything to present to the voters
Yep,
what would
I
be a
agree.
complete financially responsible plan. Right? So when we're talking about if we pass all these capital items, the voters might not like the override eventually. I don't think that's what should guide our kind of thought process. But correct me if I'm wrong, or if people feel differently. So, because I agree, we're in a pinch in that it will hurt our chances for the override. But in principle, I think we should be voting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the other thing is, if the senior center doesn't get the vote, they still happen.
well.
They just don't
I don't know.
get the biggest, they don't get the bigger, that was my
Bare
understanding.
bones.
You get,
Really be bare bones.
It'll be really bare bones. The 9,500 square foot estimate came in yesterday, and we're still under budget.
Over.
That's what we still can't build just a 9,500, so it gets even smaller from there. So you're doing a disservice.
This is why I kind of thought that when I asked the select board, can we put a hold on all this and revisit and look at everything? Granted, it costs more money if we do that, as they said, and I agree, but it's just like, let's give $1 million here, $1 million there, $1 million there, let's cut this. If we don't have safety in this town,
yeah.
Well, we're gonna have safety.
you're not.
Well,
I agree with your theory, but past history
it says it's not gonna happen.
says it's not going to happen. I wish it would, but again, you have people on fixed incomes.
They're the ones who showed up for the senior center.
And we will
And I-
remind them of
And
that
we'll
as well.
remind them of that. But they also left very quickly when we still had articles on the table to discuss too. So if they stay there and vote for the override, I think that's great. But in the end, I'm sorry, when it's pinching money, I don't have faith in that. Nothing's guaranteed.
I think a lot of it has to do with the spin that the finance committee puts on it, and if we go with your attitude of the town, and your attitude, the town has the lowest rate of taxes. I think there are only 4 towns lower in the whole state. And it's time, we have never had an override, and we've kept going at 2.5%, and what was it, 28%?
Since 2008, operational costs have gone up 28% according to Baker's.
And to say that their select board has known, previous select boards, that we have not had a balanced budget in how many years. They know that we're rates are below many towns. They've had the opportunities to increase these rates.
And they
Look
never
at
have.
things, and they haven't.
Right,
So
and
now
so
it
now we're
falls
counting
on
on-
us because we want all these new things.
So I think the
But-
timing is lined up pretty poorly. We can all agree
It
on that
is.
with all the capital projects and the operating expenses that we need. But at the same time, when we're talking about, there's a very strong opinion that we shouldn't let the buildings get as worse as they did because of maintenance. I see this very, very similarly. I'm sure corners were cut at the time because we were pinching pennies back then, and so we did a poor job maintaining the buildings, and now we're looking at that and kicking ourselves for it. This is the same way if we don't take 4.9 million. This is the same way if we don't invest the right way in the right buildings the first time. You know, we do need fire, we do need everything, and that's why we're going to tell the voters that we need all of this. You know, it's crappy that it all came up at once, but we need all of this. And if we don't want to be kicking ourselves in 50 years, then we need to present each of these items like on its own merits. You know,
Well, and I
rather than
think
playing
that we
against
need
each
to
other.
do a much better job at letting people know that on this day you have to come to town meeting, you know, and have to make your.
Well, I think we're out there letting them know, but I just
Well,
think some people
my own
just
experience-
don't care.
My own experience is that before I got involved in all this,
You know,
stuff would come and go, and you know, I'm racing around with work and kids and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't even know half the stuff was going on.
But I think when you look at the gravity of the transition that Hadley is on the brink of, these are things that matter to people, and that's why having the special town meeting followed by the special town meeting is going to be of interest, and it's going to pull people in. And to your point, I know exactly what you're talking about insofar as, you know, the way things had always been voted down in Hadley, and the way that core generational voting block always went. But the last 9 items on that override vote showed a distinct shift. There was a good 100 vote difference between all the yeses and all the nos. You have a big transition happening in town, and they get that they have low taxes and they want services and they're willing to pay for it. And the people that are on a fixed income are the ones who need the resources the most to help them get through that. If we work collectively to try and make sure those resources are available, which I'm doing on every front that I possibly can, insofar as the seniors go, they know if they, you know, the ones that are living alone can't, you know, afford to go grocery shopping, don't cook or what have you, that they can come every day and get their one big hot meal. It's 80 some odd degrees in there right now, and there's mold growing in the stairway. They were exercising this morning, and I had to say to them, stop if you get too hot, please drink water.
and shame on the town for not maintaining that building.
Well, but here we are now, and we're trying to do the right thing. And yes, it's money, but you also have debt service coming off. There won't be a better time to reinvest.
I know that we're looking at first of all, we're looking at a budget that we don't even know if we're gonna have enough free cash to balance our last year's budget, 17, in.
But you can't use debt service for that.
I know, but still, it's just bottom line across the board, wherever the money is coming from. And then we have 19 with these new buildings with more expenses that we're not sure of what they're gonna be. And we
And the
can't
school.
in school.
We don't know what the school's
what's-
gonna ask for
And
yet
we're
either.
shortfall already.
And the DPWs and trailers.
And the
So don't
DPWs and
address
trailers-
anything then?
No, I'm
Well-
not saying that. But what I'm saying is we're in a hard position here.
Yeah.
I would love all these things for
We are in
everybody.
a hard position.
I would love all those things for everybody and say yes, but then I gotta stand up and say, hey, we voted all for these, but now we need another maybe $100 added onto your taxes because we need operational to be able to fund these things.
Do you believe in all of those capital projects and the operational, that it is all needed and it's a good financial investment in the town?
It is all needed, but I'm also very smart to realize that it is not, in my opinion, I cannot see it all happening.
But it's our job to
Financially.
provide a solid financial recommendation, not try to recommend based on what the voters we
Might
think
do,
will.
yeah.
I
go
also
forward.
am a firm believer that, yes, we have a great, what is our select board doing to look at all these tax rates, that low tax rates, and increasing them and maybe getting funding somewhere else so we don't have to cut things. So I'm also, we can bring our thoughts and opinions there, but if we don't have joining other boards helping us solve those problems,
Well, that's-
nothing happens.
Well, but that's why we make our recommendations and
Exactly,
they listen to our
so-
discussion. I mean, one thing that's very telling in this room, if you look around, is we have the four of us, and we have some representatives from the senior center, and we have
That
a
are
representative from the
faithfully
fire
here.
department, and we see no one else.
That's right, and they're faithfully here.
And
So if I were to vote for two things,
and the
there you
library
go.
commissioners wanted to be here, but they're actually having their own meeting right now. So that was, they
Yeah.
can't be in two places at once.
right,
So, you know, it's my personal opinion that we definitely should have a new library. I think we do, and I think we should raise taxes in order to have that new library and have our paid daytime fire department and have our HR and have our IT. I mean, I know what the taxes are on my house, and they're really not that high.
right.
I mean,
But you missed the senior center in that whole roll call, just.
well, because the senior center is already voted on, and the smaller building is already set for you.
No, it's not.
That's not how I understood
No,
it.
because they just said that it's,
Above budget.
If we can't get additional funding, we have to go back to the
To the bare
drawing board to
bones
go
and-
even smaller, which is, you're talking an 8,000 square foot building and you minus 30% of that for hallways, mechanical, electrical, you're not giving them anything.
Another reason I voted in favor of that was because I want to put this in front of the voters, because they might not be getting the building with that original funding that they originally voted for. So we're essentially asking the question, you know, is this additional funding needed, desirable by you to get the building you originally wanted?
Exactly.
And again, I saw our
Well,
responsibility,
and I
is
still-
it financially responsible to do so?
I never really understood why you didn't ask for the whole load the first time.
Richard, did you read the narrative by any chance?
well, the
I can give it
first
to you
time they
quickly.
were not even sure.
We didn't,
They were told some price figure, if I.
and then 10 days before the meeting, we were told 3.5 ballpark. And
That was
then,
municipal buildings said that, oh, you can work with this number.
and then, yeah, and then, you know, the town hired the OPM, and we were told when the OPM came and did everything with us, well, we're not gonna have an estimate for, because our first question was, are we gonna have your estimate for the October town meeting? And they said, no way. 10 days before the town meeting, they came back with 7.1.
And you were kind of pushed with the library thing happening.
Well, we were like, wow, you know, like, can we ask that much and expect the support when the buildings we had been looking at that were built within the last 2 years were bigger and came in at 7. And being novices and not having the direction and taking the OPM's thing, said, we're trying to be fiscally responsible, knowing that the library's going, voters are gonna be asked for that, they're gonna be asked for that, we're gonna be asked for that. You know, let's not, you know,
We'll split the difference. is
split
what
the
we did.
difference is what we did, and then we came with the cost estimators right before our public forum, and it was a learning experience, to say the least. We didn't have the design and feasibility groundwork that the library had, so that was a hard lesson, and I'll take responsibility for that. And it was a hard decision to say, can we scale it back and come within this budget? And then 2 days, you know, and then the more we scaled it back, the more we looked at it and we're saying we're doing what's historically been done, cheapening the building to a point where you're gonna end up doing the same thing, putting a new roof on it, putting, you know,
Air
all the
conditioning.
things that you're doing currently now, spending, you know, bad money after good, to not build it right the first time and get within, scale it down to get within a budget. And we didn't feel comfortable with that. And we said, should we let the people decide whether they want to build it right the first time or live within what they originally voted? And that's where we came down to, and it was a really hard place, and it was a hard pill to swallow and a big learning lesson. And I take a lot of responsibility for that.
So I guess I would like to ask, because, you know, let's go back to that $95 figure.
Yep.
If we're going to the town people and saying we need this for the senior and this and that, I think we need to have that reallocated and be able to say, okay, it's not going to be $95 now if all of this goes through. This is the figure it's going to be. And also say to them at this point, okay, it's going to be 110, but we have put things on hold for many, many years. And now we are looking to our town community to help us with an override, get all our I's dotted, T's crossed. Is it gonna cost us what we need for IT, HR, blah, blah, blah? Give that, all that other will be an additional, blah, blah. We need to be able to do all
I
that.
think you should
And
do
I personally will look to all those people, the seniors, the library people, everybody,
Yeah.
to be able to go up there and say, yes, I'm going to support this override, because yes, as a community, we need to do this for our town. And that's what I expect of them. If they want me to, you know, put my opinion in there and say, yes, we all need this, I hope that they support what we say and say, well, this is what it's going to take to get our full-time fire department that everybody's going to need for these new buildings, plus the homes that you live in. And I think you all should go to these select board meetings. You're always there, and I get that, you know.
Well, it's always
Our
the same
tax-
faces.
Yes,
and
but our taxes need to be looked at. There's a devil advocate for these businesses. They're taxed the same way as our residents' personal homes are. I know there's goods and bads to that, and changing that, there's also goods and bads to that. But I seriously think that, you know, these overrides, if we looked at our real estate taxes and maybe increased it, and our water sewers are gonna be going up, but those monies, they maintain our sewer and our water pipes and the, you know,
Right, and
everything. So
you can't have that be going down.
yeah, you can't have that be going down. So, you know, I get what all of you are saying, but I'm hoping that you're gonna go out there and you're gonna be an advocate too for what we're gonna need down the road.
So,
And that's what I'm
Yeah, and
asking.
to your point, I think that's kind of what I was trying to say when I said that there's a shift in the makeup of the town.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And so, this is what I'm asking everybody, you know, who wants these new things. Do we want you to have them?
so I do want to get to
Sure.
that, and I think that might be the next thing on our agenda. But just bring back the library so we can actually vote on it.
Yeah, I think we should vote on it. We can't not vote on it, we have to vote on it.
Right.
So, are we ready to do that? Is everybody ready to do that? Okay, so I make a motion to vote on Article 4.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed?
Okay.
We got a hung jury. Well, David, if you can hear us, we voted.
Where is he? I thought he was gonna be here.
California,
Oh, he already left?
he's on vacation.
Well, so there was
Oh,
a
I
big,
thought he was gonna.
so did I, and I had asked him to be here, and he said he was gonna be here.
Exactly.
But then I guess things changed with the health of his mother, and
Oh,
she, for the better,
oh, good.
so that allowed him to leave town.
Oh,
So
I'm
we're
sorry.
happy that David's mother is feeling better, but now he went away.
okay, I didn't understand that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so originally she was doing worse, and he was going to stay in town because of that.
Yeah.
But then she got better, so he went back to the original plan. All right, so
Cool, agenda, cool.
back to the agenda here. Let's see, review of the articles, discussion of finance committee priority and projects, public safety, IT, form of government, human resource, and revenue enhancement strategies.
So to pick up, I just want to get through the library first, but I wanted to continue your points about the override. I do think that education is going to be extremely important before the special town meeting, since we're going to have the 2 in a row. I feel that we should have our ducks in a row as much as we can about the override going into the special town meeting in August, so that we don't have to essentially re-explain and re-educate and come with a whole nother set of wants, right? So we should go into all the capital projects with a clear understanding that there's also an override coming, if that is need to be happening.
I think the problem with the override, which we're not prepared for, is we don't have a cost yet for the IT and the HR.
Right. I mean, we
Exactly.
know what
I
the
mean,
fire
at least-
department's going
yeah.
to cost, but we don't know what
The others.
the others are going to cost.
I do know that we need to look at non-essential items that we currently have and see if we can make or fine-tune them. I know that, we talked about insurances with the select board and how much they pay and so forth. If that's something, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've heard that we were gonna look at that and see if we can make changes to that.
Well, yes, so the town is currently paying the insurance for some elected officials.
Retirees, and we were talking percentages and things like that.
And it used to be that the town paid for the health insurance of elected officials as, part-time elected officials is a matter of course. And then at some point, the select board said no more, and they grandfathered in the people who are still doing it. And I think at this point,
I don't think there's very many.
there's 8.
8.
And it's somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000 in the insurance budget line. And so we know that the fire department's going to cost $219,000 to fund the staff. That's going to be required to keep the town safe and to keep the firemen safe.
What's the money for, do we already add the new person in for the 18 budget?
Well, we had one for the 18
Right.
budget. We borrowed that from OPEB, and we're going to try and use free cash to pay OPEB back.
Which we don't know if we'll have enough free cash
We don't
anyways.
know, right, we don't know the answer to that question.
So you can't keep borrowing from OPEB.
Right, so we're not gonna keep borrowing, so we need the whole 219 for the 19 budget.
Right.
Right, so that was just a Band-Aid to get the one person on board.
So the
For this-
219 will take care of the 2 that you still want and the 1 that you already have, right?
It would be 3 that we requested 4 total, we're getting 1, so it would include all 4 if you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Next
okay,
year.
for 219.
Yeah,
And that doesn't include the benefits, which is probably, what, another 40?
When we did the grant request, it came to $555,000 for 2 years. That was 2 years fully funded, so,
With benefits.
with benefits.
So
The
that's-
benefits was
so you're talking
47%,
about
I think.
250 then.
Right, so
Expensive.
you're talking more like, I'll say 260, 265 to be on the good side.
So, back to where we're gonna get this money from, there's only 2 places to get money from. There's you increase revenue by increasing taxes, or you cut programs in favor of other programs, right? You take away from one group to pay for another group. And
That is
if that
true.
other group is the fire department, then I think that has to come first. We do not want to be in a situation, and I will not sit on this board or any other board while the town is in danger of something horrible happening. Just-
I agree, especially during the day, because at nighttime you have those, well, not maybe some, but your odds are better. I would
And, you know,
think.
of our total budget, the only place you can get that money is in non-essential services. So we're not gonna take away sewer.
Well, you can't do that.
You know,
Mhm.
not gonna do that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, one place that you can get some money is by elimination of this health insurance for elected part-time officials that are still hanging on the books. You know, there's the Park and Rec Department, which, you know, as much of a nice program as it is, and, you know, the work that they put into it, but
No money goes back into the general fund for us.
and that can be, you know, divvied up either by hiring a contractor to take care of that scheduling, or perhaps put it into the library's domain
Well, down the
in
road,
the
they
children's
did,
desk.
they did talk about, a little bit about how they bring in money as well. And I thought down the road, you know, they collect money for different.
Yeah, but that only, that
That
doesn't,
doesn't benefit the town.
that
No,
only
but if
takes
they
care of
could,
their,
if they could do their own enterprise fund,
yeah, but they don't
Then you wouldn't
make
have
nearly
to.
enough
And
money to
support
pay for.
themselves.
support themselves.
Which
Yep.
years and years ago, that happened, but today
Right, well, right now,
you're not able to do, they're not able to do that.
we're paying somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 for Park and Rec, and they have a small fund that pays for equipment because they charge some fees and stuff. But the vast majority of their salaries and health insurance and that sort of thing is paid for by the town. Now, if they want to increase their fees and, you know, become a for-profit agency, well, I have no objection to that. And indeed, like I said before, I would much rather see us have an override and keep Park and Rec.
Mhm.
But, you know, at some point,
So then on that,
well,
I'm in general agreement about having to cut services for other services, especially the essential ones. But as a matter of process and timing, I'm getting hesitant about solidifying our thoughts about what to cut going into the discussion about the override, because it can easily come across as we will cut Parks and Rec if you do not vote for this override.
yeah,
That can very strongly come across to the voters.
and
I think we're looking at it as, our first objective is we need to find money for the fire department and not count on an override. You can't count on ifs. You have to deal with what you have right now. And that's where I've been
Right,
saying
because-
I've been going.
And in fact, if you wanted to propose, and I do want to propose that in the absence of an override, then my proposal would be to cut that health insurance line and to cut the Park and Rec. And that'll get us most of the way to where we need to be to get the fire department. And we may have to cut operating budgets of
departments.
other departments.
Non-essential. I think that the park part of it can be umbrellaed under the DPW. I think Marlowe can oversee the Saturka Park. Saturka Park has Friends of Saturka Park. That's basically doing everything to get that going.
I mean,
They had a planning board meeting the other night, and their volunteers of Friends of Saturka Park were the people that were there supporting it. So, and so then looking at the youth programs, one, you can like hire not a full-time town employee, but a consultant to organize. You can have any office anywhere.
Well-
They don't have a building to oversee anymore,
Any
like the
group-
senior center does.
any group of parents who want to run a T-ball league can get together and run a T-ball league.
Right, but there's more than just sports. There's other activities, and if you look at the activities that they have planned for the whole summer, they're run out of maybe the schools and so forth. It took one person to organize that stuff. You know,
Right, but where we are right now is, you know, I think we are gonna propose to the town that they should increase, you know, they should vote for an override and keep everything that they have and get a fire department.
right.
I think they should do that. Hang on one second. But on the other hand,
if
know,
they
this
don't.
is a simple process, really. It's not difficult,
Mhm.
right? You know what you have to pay for, and you know how much money you have coming in.
Mhm.
You know, and I'll take my own household as an example. My wife and I were having this discussion about things not meeting up, and she looked at me straight in the face and said, "Well, stop going out to eat so damn much."
Mhm.
Well, we did, and it was better. You know, and that's just where it is.
Right,
Now, the town collectively doesn't go out to eat, so we can't cut that.
right.
But I think if the people want those things, if they want to go out to eat, they have to pay for it. I'm the most liberal guy in town.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, if you want to buy something, you have to pay for it.
That's right.
So I'm in general agreement, but I'll return to the matter of process and timing. All right.
Yeah.
So we're obviously talking about the FY19 budget, which will, we've got time, and I know it goes quick, but we have time. Would it be more productive to spend our time on IT and HR and developing, the actual implementation plans for how much it'll cost?
Oh, we absolutely have to do that.
But
Now, how are you
have-
gonna do that?
How are you
I
gonna
mean-
do that? You also need a full, we were all in agreement, we needed to support the fire department. And now that changes, that's still top priority. Safety is still top priority
I
here
mean,
for me.
We're in a situation now where we are not safe. I mean,
But
He's
top
not
priority
even-
doesn't necessarily mean it has to be addressed first in a timing matter, right?
well, it has to be addressed in the 19 budget period.
Yes.
Your
But-
17 budget is not even balanced, so let me just say that. Your 17 budget is not balanced. Correct?
Yes,
Now
we're still
we're-
relying on free cash to
That's
come back
right.
to be able to, yeah.
We don't even know if we'll have enough. So now we're into our 18 budget. If the 17 budget doesn't balance, we're short 500,000. It carries over to 18. So not only are you short that 500,000, you're going to be short a million. Okay? So I mean, you can't jump to 19. You have to look at reality right now.
Yes, but looking at reality right now and how many meetings we have left before the special town meetings, let's say 3, 4, we meet every couple of weeks. If we don't have all of our ducks in a row for the IT and the HR, which I think we can be productive and actually work on, which I can get to. If we don't have that lined up, then our plan A is, we're hamstringing ourselves. Then we'll have all the time in the world to talk about, fire and getting the money for it. Why do that now? when
In
what's-
August, what I thought is that you're gonna tell these people, get ready, because in October, when our next meeting, not the second August meeting, I thought we were gonna present it in October to say, this is what we need. I think you're rushing the IT and HR figure you can come up with easily, in my opinion. It's the IT that's a huge figure, huge.
Well, and
There's
are we
lots of parts to it.
Are we outsourcing it? Are we hiring an IT manager or an IT person for the town?
And what's
did
gonna
we all
happen
read
to the
through the DLS
building?
study about the IT needs for the town? I mean, it details what kind of a department we would build, the staffing that we would need, the equipment that we would need.
Right, because you have staff, equipment, you have all
Right,
this
it
kind of
details
stuff.
that. It
We
would
have
be
that?
on us. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, we have the study, it was given to us. It would be on us to go out and price it and try to find staffing and what makes sense and who we can hire and to do the actual analysis of based on how much we pay for benefits and the salary to be competitive and who we could get and all that kind of stuff. We have to price it, right? The actual implementation and pricing plan. But we have the bones of what we actually need to come up with an IT department in a lot of ways.
Equipment and everything.
Well, that's a moving target. But yeah, they've identified the needs based on our size and based on, how we could, they laid it out. I mean, I can pull
Well,
up
I
the
mean,
study
you're
from the
being an
DLS.
IT person. I mean, you read this over and it makes sense and it doesn't look like it's outdated. The
Yeah.
information, it looks
So
good.
It's a
what-
solid plan. It's not an implementation.
So do you have a
Okay.
notion in your mind as to how much that
Which
would
would
cost?
include equipment, the updating the building for all of this, everything. What's your figure?
The ballpark figure?
Yeah,
Just ballpark.
Just something to talk about, yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't even want to say necessarily because the plan, so I highly recommend reading of the plan, specifies one IT person essentially
Mm-hmm.
and how it's laid out. I personally think you would need at least 2 to kind of run the town, especially if you want any kind of expansion of,
And training as well.
in training and support and, there's still options if we kind of go through paragraphs for support. So there's a couple different ways we can slice it. But I mean, if you're talking 2 full-time staff members after benefits and everything, you're talking, 150?
Well, we have
depending on how
one
much you
at
pay
the
them.
Hopkins, right? We have one, it's an IT person.
We
at
could
the
share.
schools.
For
So
the
you do
school-
have one.
Yes, and there's, can you
already, and then-
share?
Yeah, and if we got another one, then you'd have two, they could
So that's the labor
back
part of it.
each other up, I would
That's-
think.
I'm thinking equipment, all that other stuff that goes with it, updating your buildings so this new equipment can run efficiently, right?
Right,
It
depends on how
takes
much
all
you want
that,
to do. That's
too.
why you can't just give a
Mhm.
price. I mean, do we want to standardize all the computers we're using across the town to make management much easier? Because,
Well, that's the idea, isn't
Well,
it?
I think it's gonna have to come
but
in
eventually,
waves. You're not gonna replace every computer in town all
right,
one
that's
day.
the idea. You could have one guy, and you could get enough servers to start digitizing things, to start replacing computers, to start providing technical support, to have an IT department. Or if you had an increased capital amount that you're requesting, you can, get multiple servers. You can like deploy a lot of computers. You can start like working on the network and like our connectivity with all the buildings. It's scalable, right? How much you want to do all at once when you're implementing a whole new department. So that's why you could say 150,000 for staff, and then what 50 or 100,000 for capital just to start up. I could throw you that number, or I could tell you 300 or 400,000 if you really want to go all out in implementing to future-proof us, as it were, and have what we actually need.
Yeah, well,
Right, but you can roll this out over multiple years, but is that what you want for the override? But the point is, I want to get those figures. I want to come back to this finance committee and have that discussion, because there's a lot of work to do there before the override could possibly happen. And we'll need support from obviously David and Linda and our staff.
But once again, I think we're in a critical spot with the fire department, and we gotta get that taken care of. So if you wanna put off talking about the override to include everything, then the only possibility is to cut other services in order to fund the fire department. We are funding the fire department, I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
I agree with that. But if
So-
we don't do this now and push the fire department discussion about what to cut and how to cut it off to later, because it's going to be more complex than just like cut something. There's going to be a lot more to it. It's going to take multiple meetings. If we don't push that off and have the discussions now about IT and HR
Well, and then
and
there's
how to
another
do it,
complexity
we won't have
to
a
it.
shot.
There's another complexity to it, because the townspeople could actually vote for no override, could vote for all the buildings, and could vote to not cut certain programs and leave us in a negative spot, and we'd be bound to it because they voted.
I don't think you can
Yeah, they can, actually.
imbalance budget like that.
No, but they can, on individual matters, they can vote. Like, so Park and Rec was created by a town hall meeting vote.
Mhm.
So it has to be removed by a town
Right,
hall
that's what I'm
meeting
pointing
vote.
out with
So they
the-
could say, no, we don't want to get rid of Park and Rec. We do want to build all these buildings, and no, we don't want an override and tough shitsky.
Right. I mean,
They
it's not
could
like
say
we'll
that.
Imbalanced budget at that point, but yeah, it will be more
And
complicated.
then it's going to be like, then our credit rating starts to go down because we're in the hole.
Right.
But they could vote that way and leave us strung out
right.
that
So when
way.
you're talking about
which-
health insurance,
Which goes to our, form of government portion here, because right now we are in a situation where the town could merely vote to destroy us, and we would have there'd be nothing we could do about it.
right? But when you're talking health insurance for these elected official positions, I don't know enough. Is that by bylaw that we're like obligated to provide that? Would it require like the time of vote to
No, I mean,
modify the bylaw to get rid of that?
The select board voted to stop it and to grandfather the existing people with the notion that those people eventually would be off of it. And what I'm suggesting is that they're gonna have to get there quicker. It's like, it was a nice thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand why that select board did that. But we're running out of money. We're just people say, oh, just balance the budget. Well, that's not so easy.
I
You
think,
know?
I also think though, if you look back, when the select board changed it, and I'd have to look into it further, I'm not sure, that they said the insurance would be over when the term is over. So is your term over?
If you're reelected, your term's not over.
You're, right, so you're reelected, the term still goes on, you're not over.
They have to be, and one of the select board members was on at that point and then left, missed a cycle, and then was elected back on, and when he came back on, he
Oh.
couldn't get it, because it was already past that.
So, and then that, just talking about Park and Rec, Jerry Devine, the select board member, he also said to Park and Rec, maybe that their services could fund, their services could fund some of their expenses. which is what, you know, so.
Hey, if they can turn enough of a dollar to pay their way, then sure, you know.
And
You'll find
look-
Miranda scooping down on Route 9.
And I think that the reason why Park and Rec is brought up right now is because of the change that's happening. You have the coordinator, the past coordinator, Kathy Sturka, leaving. You have somebody interim.
Right.
And then once you hire somebody full-time.
Then you're more stuck.
You're,
Yeah.
yes, you're more, and I'm not saying that the woman that they have is not gonna, or would like to do great things with it. But looking at this right now, since there's, the opportunity has been brought.
Right, that's the reason to consider it now.
And that's why you consider it now. So, you know, as far as the commission could have been, you know, when they when they did the DPW, and the sewer commission was then eliminated because sewer now falls under the, am I right, Mike, by saying this, under the Department of Public Works. So this could also be part, or you can make the commission a advisory board
So,
to the select
So I'm-
board and not make them elected officials.
so can you clarify? I understand that we have staffing turnover, so it may be a good time to look at Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is our plan B, no matter, even though the turnover's right now, it's not like we're going to cut or make severe changes now because we're still going to wait on whether we get the override. So even though now's the opportune time to make a change, if this is plan B, wouldn't this happen for next year
My
anyway?
change for Park and Rec would be to put the park part of it under the DPW. That eliminates commissioners unless they want to be advisory board. Look at the staffing and make the staffing not full. It's not, in my opinion, with the changes and all these parents doing their own organizations, is it warranted for 30 hours? Look at your programs. They don't have a building facility
Okay,
at
so
this point.
when would that happen? For
Well-
FY19?
That's, I would have to bring
So
it,
well, that's the next.
that's up to the select board, and basically, you'd have
Yeah.
to bring, this is the recommendation, they can make it happen anytime. Right? So you're not gonna hire somebody and they're already advertising and probably already have all their applicants applied.
Mhm.
You know, you're not gonna hire somebody, full-time employee, and then a month later say to them, your department's null and void.
Okay.
I
Or-
would never
this
do
is
that.
something
Or
where-
if you have someone, I mean, and you got it restructured, that employee could be just, you would restructure, make them part of the town, you know, and move
Mhm.
into the town hall and be under David,
Or could be under the DPW.
or under the DPW, but you could have, I mean, if you're consulting, you're gonna pay the same amount as a person's
Right,
salary,
and
probably.
that's a very highly paid person, that position too, so that's
Right.
another issue.
So, but I'm just saying, I think that I think it is something to relook at, absolutely, and I think, you know, if you give them the opportunity, maybe they could do their own enterprise.
Yep.
And
And
say,
I-
hey, look, we can't afford to fund you anymore, can you do it yourself? And
Mhm.
allow them to stay open, but, you know, do their own thing, but have them fund themselves.
Right. And you know what, we have people in other departments that can, you have it in the library. What is it, youth coordinator planner or something like that, if you look under your thing here? I mean, so it's not like you don't, have people that, within this town that can take on things.
I mean,
Yeah.
the library
To
runs
organize
children's
the extra
programs all the
stuff.
time. You walk by a library and there's stuff going on.
And so again, I don't
Exactly.
necessarily disagree. I think a lot of this is probably a good idea. What I'm asking is, are we suggesting this as a cost-cutting measure now?
Well,
for,
now
like,
is when we need the money.
regardless of what happens with the override?
Well, no, if the override passes, and then we're all good. Then everybody gets what they want.
So I'm trying to understand the immediacy of why this now is the opportune time to
The
look at Parks
immediacy
and
is
Rec.
now because we need to fund the fire department now.
Sorry, about Parks and Rec.
Oh,
Are
because
they going to
the-
hire a new person?
Yes,
Okay, so we don't.
So they need to not do that.
But are
it goes
we
hand
advising
in
them?
hand with the fire department.
So we're waiting until October with the override vote, and if the override vote gets turned
Right, but I think
down,
the people need to understand that here's an override vote. If you vote for this, we get everything that everyone wants. If you don't vote for this, things are starting to fall.
I agree. I understand. What I'm asking is, they have
I'm
a
gonna
vacant
ans-
position right now?
I'm
Is that
gonna
going to
answer your
stay open
question.
through October?
Well, the select board has to vote in order to allow them to actually full-time hire.
That's right.
So that would be up to the select board to decide if they were going to allow them to do that or not.
So when we recommend to the select board, are we telling them wait until October, or are we
No.
telling them make these cuts
We're
regardless?
saying this is where you can come up with some money through insurances, through elected officials, through reconstructing this department by, yes, you're eliminating the department, but you also could hire a part-time consultant with a stipend. It could be whatever figure you want to give them, umbrellaed under the DPW to run programs. It's much less. So you're talking with the insurance, 110,000. So we're giving them the
This is where we-
fuel
I
to
understand.
feed the fire department.
When? is
They
my
have to
question.
make that decision. We can't make that decision. I'm not going based on an override. This is what we come up with to raise some money to support this fire department. You want to keep on a part-time person to run programs for the youth in combination with the one that does it for the library, then that's up to them. But still, you are saving tons of
Right, we're
money.
offering them an option.
You're giving them an option. It's up to them whether they decide or not. I can't rely on, okay, in October your Park and Rec is going to say, in 2 years from now, and the need for Park and Rec is there again, we revisit it. But right now with the changes,
So
The need
if that's
is not
the case,
there, in my
then we need to
opinion.
have the discussion about Parks and Recs on its own merit besides the override, and not talk about it like a Plan B
that's
for the
way-
override.
I'm not talking
Well-
about it as a plan B. I'm talking about it as if now we need to find funding. But Park and Rec is not the only thing. I mean, you need to look through the whole non-essential items.
I mean, it's not
It-
inconceivable that the library budget would be cut, that the senior center budget would be cut.
So I
It's like-
understand, but we don't want to do all that or suggest to the select board that they do that or have the select board do that before the override vote.
You know what?
Your statement was that we would not need to do this to Parks and Rec if we get the override vote. That we
Right, and that's going, that has to go to the people, and it's like as soon as October.
Correct. But now is when we are hiring for this new position in Parks and Rec.
What he's trying to say to you, Tom, is, are you for eliminating this Park and Rec and the insurances for the whatever, regardless if you get the override or not?
No.
So you gotta look as, you're not?
No, I mean,
So
if
why
we can
would
pay
you
for, I mean, if we could pay for everything, we pay for everything.
Right, that's where I hear a difference
So
in what
why
we're
would you
recommending.
support, so this is what I'm saying to you then, why would you support a town, continue to support a department that doesn't yes, it offers programs and services for the youth, okay? But why would you look at eliminating that department if you want to save it? You see, I'm
Well-
looking at the whole budget, where can we find this money for the fire department without looking at the override? The override to me is after we find the funding for the fire department. If all of a sudden with the override, there's more money there, then that's great.
Well,
But
what
I'm
you're
not-
talking about is semantics.
But I'm
You're
not
saying
counting
this-
on an override.
You're saying the
I'm
same thing.
I'm looking at right now. I'm not counting on override to fund the fire department. I'm looking as if we need the fire department,
No.
how are we gonna fund it?
So I'm looking at it not as override to fund the fire department. I'm looking at it as override to keep the programs that we would cut. We're keeping the fire department, no matter what.
So you would reinstate them? See, that's like devil's advocate to me.
I mean, the people have to understand that if they
So you're
want.
kinda gonna go up there and say, you either do this override or we're gonna cut everything to get the fire
Well, that's
department.
exactly what's going to happen.
That's what I
That-
started by saying, is that if we
That-
talk about
that's
cutting
what's gonna
everything
happen.
now, it will come across that way.
Right, but that's reality.
It may be, but we
That's
just
the
have to be aware of
reality.
that.
Please, go
To
ahead.
me-
I've been wait. She's been wanting to talk for a while
So,
now.
When you talk about an override, let's say you ask for a 5% override, how much cash does that give you?
Well, so I've asked that question a number of times in
Thank
this
you.
room, and I never really get a straight answer. So I'm going to pose the question the other way. I'm going to say, David, how much of an override do we need to get the $250,000 for the fire department and keep all these other things and add IT and add, say we need 150 for IT and 100 for HR,
Yeah.
say just round numbers. So, so we're essentially, can you turn that off?
I did turn it off.
Not off enough.
I agree. And I think that's what we should be pursuing.
You know, so, you know, if we're asking for 250, 350, $500,000, say,
Mhm.
you know, you know, if David was sitting here, I would say, David, we need 500,000 extra dollars in the budget to fund everything that we want to have.
Every year,
Every year.
Mhm.
every year.
How much of an override do we need?
On top of the 500,000, we're already short.
So you need $1 million.
Right.
So, at that point, David's gonna do something. He's gonna turn to the assessor's office, or he's gonna turn to the
Gonna ask Linda.
Linda. When you ask Linda, she says, well, I have to calculate it all, and I need this figure and that figure, and this goes up and that goes down, and quite frankly, it's past my comprehension what she has to do. So we kind of have to leave her do what she needs to do.
In my opinion, you have to do what you have currently. You're
Well-
asking for credit later down the road to fund all these things. And I look at the fire department and other departments too, right now, to give them what they need. I'm looking at what we have currently.
To me, everybody's saying the same thing.
I-
In my
I-
mind, it's all the same
I
thing.
totally agree with what you're saying, but I think just to get through these meetings, I think Abe has a point. Like, it's the meeting that's coming, the town meeting and the override. So I think we should focus
Well,
our
I don't-
energy on getting the number.
I agree, but
Just,
I think that
Well, we
I
don't
think
have
why-
any numbers, and we asked the select board to come up with a number for
So-
HR, I think, right? We asked them to help consult and get those numbers, so I'm looking at as if the override don't go through, we still need to
there
fund the
was
fire
some
department.
there was some mention of subcommittees to look at IT and HR. Did anything ever happen with
No.
that? There was a
Yeah, I
select-
mean, a subcommittee was kind of formed at the last, not the two tri-board meetings ago, to look at override options, which would have the big umbrella of also covering
And has
costs
anything
for
come?
IT, HR.
Have those groups of people done anything that we have any kind of concrete stuff coming out of them?
did you go to any of those meetings?
No, we haven't met. It's an informal committee. It's not like an
Right,
actual
right.
anything like that. No, I've been looking into override options myself and the IT stuff, just because that's my area of expertise. Well,
Right.
I
also
understand that
feel
Molly and
like
David are looking more
The
into
select board
HR
should be involved
options.
in this too, not just you or the four of us.
Well, that's why we have tri-board meetings that end up being
It's never gonna
bi-board
be
meetings.
done
but
by August.
That's my concern.
It
Yeah.
will, well, first of all, you have vacations, people, on both boards, people are not here consistently, and I don't know, I just don't feel the energy from the current select board about getting this done, all 5 of them.
I agree with that, which
I
is
don't
why
feel
I'm
the
thinking it
energy
would
from
fall a
them.
little more to the finance committee if that was the case.
But we're advisory to the select board. If they are not supportive of it, we're wasting our
you
energy.
can advise all day long. If
That's
they don't
as one
move,
of
you're
the
not
s-
gonna.
that's
Doesn't
right.
matter.
What is the next direction that you see it go, you would like to see us go in?
Come up with figures for IT.
Okay,
Talk to David and Molly about what HR would actually look like and get a basic needs assessment from department head meetings and other committees.
okay.
Just to have something on paper about what they'd actually need for HR representatives.
Mm-hmm,
So if we can get a staff size of just 1, 2, or 3, whatever it would look to be.
mm-hmm.
Do a basic kind of cost analysis across the other communities around us about what HR professionals cost.
Mhm.
Obviously,
we'll-
working the benefits to that based on what we already
$65,000,
have.
$70,000
And are we
a year.
assigning,
See, that's work we can be doing.
yeah, are we
I already
looking to
know that.
assign David to this task or someone else?
Oh, of
or
course,
through
you'd
the
be
committee?
supporting us in, whatever requests we made between us and the select board.
Well, and then you also have to consider that, form of government keeps coming up. But say we had an HR person, would that person have the power to say, oh, no, you cannot hire that person unless you go through this procedure?
That's a little more for the select board to decide in
You know, it's
defining
like-
the position. It would be our role to kind of figure out how to fund it or what the real monetary
Right, but I
need
mean,
is.
that sort of thing has to be discussed. 'Cause you can go out and hire an HR person, but if that person doesn't have the power to actually do anything,
Yeah, but I think that is a big task, is to deal with the form of government, and it's definitely needed. But it's a big task, and I don't think we have enough time to focus
don't.
on that
I
right
mean,
now.
we polled the select board, and they're on board with a fire department
Mhm.
for the next budget discussions. When budget season comes again, it's going to be in there.
Yeah.
But it's not like they ever sounded against IT or HR. They've
No.
identified as
No,
No,
but,
need.
no.
but for the immediate need,
For the immediate need, they were in favor
They're
of
in
the fire
favor.
department. And I don't get the
I think-
vibe from them, or all of them, I should say, that they want to put a lot of energy into
To an override.
to an override.
In fact, I know there's one member of the select board who told me straight up and down that he would not vote for an override.
Mm-hmm. I
So
can
now you got
guarantee
4
too.
left.
But
But-
it's the town that votes for the override.
But they won't support it.
Right, but if they don't
we think-
support it, the town
It's
won't.
not on the warrant, it doesn't get a chance for the town to speak. And whether you believe in it or not, I would encourage you to put it on the warrant.
Well, but that's
I
what I'm
believe
saying.
it.
When I say the select board won't, that one member of the select board won't vote for it, he won't vote for putting it on the warrant.
But he doesn't have to.
No, that we would have to.
But you need at least 3 of them to do it.
That's
I think
right.
you would have 3.
It's a long time in coming, actually.
Well, yeah, because it's
Exactly.
never happened.
Exactly.
So yes, it's,
Exactly,
350
but-
years.
How many towns have not had an override? Do you remember that number?
Or how many actually had them in past? That was the question.
Yeah,
So I
but-
think there's plenty of work for us to do as a finance committee. We can educate ourselves, regardless of getting Sandy Pooler or whoever else out here, we can educate
Well,
ourselves on the
so
override process.
I
and our
understood that
options.
was, supposed to happen, and then I never heard another word about that.
If it's true that select board's dragging their feet, then maybe we do have to kind of take it on ourselves to research those options.
Right, but in the end, we are an advisory board to select people. And as one told us, it really matters what the select board says, not us, so,
Right.
But if we have a solid plan for what it would look like, the process that we could go through and identify the real needs financially of the town for this, and presented that, and the select board didn't even put it on the warrant, that would be a very strong signal that the people have had. I don't think it would go unnoticed.
I have a question for you.
Actually, I think it would go unnoticed. I think most people don't even know what goes on in town.
I have a question, that's right, and I have a question for you. What do we do about our fire department and funding the additional people?
Which
Because-
has to happen in the next
I think
budget
that's the
cycle.
most clear-cut part of the override that we have. We have the budget
You
laid out, we have
can't
the needs
rely on an
identified.
override to fund it.
I agree, and if the override gets turned down, then we talk about making all the cuts to departments that we have to. I'm in full support of that.
I think you need to have that, both options presented to the select board. Here's what we propose for cuts if there's no override. If there's an override, then
Fine, then this
fine.
comes back.
This comes back.
Or not even,
So I think that you need to have prepared what you're willing to do if the override doesn't happen. You have to give them your A and your B. Just let them see what they.
And you have to give the people the A and the B too.
Exactly. So, again, you still have to plan for if the override doesn't go through. What are you gonna do? What numbers are you gonna look at? This is why we asked David, what are all, by department, the expenses? So that is a part of this as well.
And when you go
agree,
through that
and if the
list,
board-
those budgets are already razor thin.
So you wanna spend a
Yeah.
lot of time for the override, but yes, we do. We need to look into all those things, but we need to look into the existing budget as well.
And if the board wants to move forward in that direction, I won't take up more of our time, because I've hammered the point enough.
No, I think
But
you
I
have to
think-
give them A and B.
In preparing the B, and the amount of work and time it'll take us to do that, I don't think enough work will get done on the override to be able to include things like IT, HR, and possibly even
For
fire if we don't have
August,
the
I didn't think it was optional
or
anyways.
for the town. No, for the fall.
For October.
For October?
I don't
Right,
think
because-
we will have a plan A if we just focus on just getting a plan B. But if we want to keep moving
Well,
forward
Plan
and
A
talking
is
about
Plan A is easy, right?
No, Plan A for an override is not easy.
I mean, you're going to ask the people for so much money, and you're going to say it's going to cost this much
Problem is,
money on your.
we don't know how much money right
Well,
now.
we have a good estimate that we're going to be asking for an extra $500,000 every year.
Well, once you've asked for it, it is then the rate, and then you have 2.5% increase. You don't have to ask for it every year.
Right.
Right, that's what, yeah. once it-
Exactly.
Right, it's the
then-
rate.
Once it's passed, then you're operating at another level that you're funded for that,
Yes.
and then you get your regular increase.
Can I ask one question? Was in any of all of the ball of wax that you've been handed, did anybody talk about looking at any of the wages for everybody
Well,
that?
they're doing a wage
They're
study.
supposed to be doing a wage, because we have a.
I've been hearing that for 4 years.
Yeah, well, but one of the issues is
I
that
heard that too.
there's someone in a position, and and they go along in that position, they live their life, and they go along in that position, say 30 years, and as they get their increases over 30, and then they hire, that person says, okay, I'm done, I'm retired, and instead of taking a new person and starting them here, they tack them on right where they, so those costs keep going up forever.
I hear that, in particular with what's happening now, because I've been in my I've been doing my job description for 12 years for here.
And how did you feel when you were compared?
I was surprised because I haven't gotten a step raise in 2 years. And I got a 1.5% COLA.
Okay.
So, my question is any of that?
Well, the
I
select,
mean, and if
the
it's
select
not-
board has that on their radar, but,
Okay,
it's,
I get it.
I.
Just
I think-
wanted to know if
I
the
think
topic
it-
had come up.
Determines where a person starts on their pay scale. I
Well, in
asked that
her
question,
case-
didn't get an answer.
On her case, because I was on the search committee,
Yes.
it was going to be higher, but the budget line was set for Jane Booth,
Yes.
and she took a lot of unclaimed.
She was your predecessor?
Yes, unclaimed vacation and sick pay, which reduced the budget line for salary.
So they cut that.
So they cut what she should have started at, and they said, we'll check that within the year, and it hasn't happened.
And the position went from 35 to 40 hours, which
Did
even
they do that
further.
when Chief Huckwitz passed away? Did the new chief coming in have to take a cut because we had to pay them out, pay the family out for all his sick time and all that? Devil's advocate there. Isn't that the same thing?
Well, but if you hire someone new into a position, they shouldn't make the rate that the last person made. They should make whatever the prevailing wage is for that job.
Well, that's the thing, that's why they gotta do the wage study. Because
Exactly.
if you, I mean, they have to check and see if we're even in the ballpark with the wages right now.
Mm-hmm.
You may find out that the wages are, $10 an hour under what the average is in here.
Or you may find in
That's
some
the thing.
cases that it's over.
Mhm.
Or you may find it in the reverse.
And the
too.
only
But-
reason I even bring that up, because I understand there's priorities, and quite frankly, I agree with the priorities, but that, I'm not a resident of Hadley. But the only reason I bring that up is because I had been hearing that for quite some time, and now you're talking about operational costs and overrides, and I'm just saying, if it doesn't show up here, you'll have to deal with that again.
But you're not the only one in
I
town.
understand that, I understand that.
Oh, I know you do, but this is what I've been saying at every meeting. You're slapping the face to your existing employees by allowing other things to happen. That's what you're doing. And you're creating issues with employees against each other in departments in this town.
Well, the whole thing is I think the form of government, we're looking at that with the whole form of government because, and with the wage study, because a lot of it doesn't make sense. One department can hire and fire, another department can't. It doesn't, there's no uniform to
And
it.
this is still,
And they have to have some more, and with an HR person,
With teeth. The HR person has to have teeth.
they would, because they would make, there'd be more uniform to it.
but this is the other thing, looking at Park and Rec. You have the commissioner situation, and then you have what can they, or what have they done in the past, and what can they do now, and so forth, which is something the select board has to straighten out, and so forth. But if you take the commission part away from it, and then it falls on the select board, and you can have more, I would hope, more consistency across the board.
But is the Park and Rec the only one that's like that? I mean, I think there's other issues and other.
There's lots of issues for HR to have to deal with, and so that's why HR is huge
Important,
important. But this
Yeah.
is why I'm saying Park and Rec was brought up because of the change of
Yeah.
command now to look at it before you hire a full-time employee, to look at the whole department.
Right. Do you need a full-time employee?
Do you need a 30-hour employee?
At a high rate when maybe you could take that
So,
person
again-
down to like 10 hours and hire a
you
minimum
need
wage
to do that
person to do
before they
scheduling
hire
and
a
stuff.
I understand, which is why I'm saying that this is going to happen way before any override town meeting. That was the point I was trying to bring up. It's going to happen
Well,
now.
we need to get our act together so that come October town meeting, we're talking about overrides.
But we're only gonna have 2 more meetings, so what are we gonna do about it?
Well, we kind of have to tell the select board that, you know, we need to know by October.
We need to kind
Or
of know where
Plan
they
B automatically
stand.
goes into effect.
We need to know where they stand, a solid where they stand. They don't even know within themselves. You get a
Yeah,
different.
I mean, I've gotten that message from them that they
Exactly, so.
don't really know where they stand on
we-
an override.
Right, and you need to get somewhat kind of a commitment from them, not, oh, well, you bring it back to us and we'll consider it.
Well, maybe one of your chairs has to go to the next select board meeting and confront them.
We go to every select
And
board
say-
meeting.
No, and say, the finance committee wants to know your position about offering this town an override this October.
Well, we're gonna talk about that on Wednesday,
And unfortunately,
The
I won't
second.
be here on Wednesday.
the 2nd.
Isn't
Oh.
there a meeting the 26th?
Yes, there
Yes,
is.
but the 2nd
But
is
it's-
when it's the tri-board that we'll all be here.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I can't be here next week. I'm away for work next week.
And I'll
But
be
we
on
can
vacation.
bring it up on the 2nd.
The 2nd.
You can ask them. I
Oh, yeah,
mean,
so you're not
but,
here next week either, so we won't
I'm
have a
on
quorum
vacation.
next week. Yeah.
well,
I'm sure we're still allowed to ask.
we're still
Sure.
allowed to
Yeah, you
ask.
guys can
Yeah.
still go and ask, that would be.
If you agree as a board that we're able to go and ask this question as
Sure.
for the finance
I mean,
committee.
you know,
Even
Go
as
ahead.
residents, we could.
I'm disappointed that I'm not gonna be here and I can't control that because it's a work thing I can't get around.
Nobody
but-
wants anything cut, but reorganized so it fits the town better.
Well, it has to be
at
cut
this
enough
point.
so that the budget's there to do what you need to do.
Right, well, you know, I've been
So-
hearing for the last 6 years about the insurance thing, and they haven't done anything yet, so.
Well,
I
I mean,
just wanna
the
tell you
people
that.
kind of have to
That's why I
understand.
don't have faith.
The people kind of have to understand.
Okay.
When I say the people, the townspeople of Hadley have to understand where we're at. Because I think if you went around and you sat in Trader Joe's and asked every person from Hadley who walked through if they knew anything about what's going on in town, I think you'd find that that number of people is very small.
But-
When only 117 people come to the last town meeting,
But that's their choice.
I
They
know,
don't
but
care.
well, then if they don't care,
Yeah,
then
but they're gonna start to care once they start to have to pay.
Right.
You know.
We did say
or
we'd
when
have.
they want the things that you're bringing to the special town meeting, they'll
I mean,
show
at
up.
the last select board meeting, you noticed that the Park and Rec people jammed the hallway full of Park and Rec supporters, and I guarantee you that those people, not one of those people know what's really at stake. They're just like, oh, don't cut Park and Rec. We love Park and Rec.
It was probably 6 people, and a few of them were on Friends of Park and Rec, which has a chunk of money too.
I
That
saw a
can
lot
help
of people out in the
support.
hallway there.
So I think we did kind of discuss having a recommendation for the select board then.
Yeah.
So the two things I've heard of Parks and Rec and the health insurance. I'm completely in favor of looking at the health insurance and however the select board can get rid of that as a cost save measure. I would recommend. I don't know if we want to like formally vote on if we as a board recommend X, Y, or Z.
And I don't think that you're gonna cut people off like that. I think you're gonna give them
No,
like.
You're going to give them like a sunset 6 months or
6
something.
months, you know what I mean? This, because you can't do that. It's
So
not right to them
I'm
either.
sure it's more complicated
Yeah.
than just $120,000 we have now. I'm sure it's more complicated. So then on the Parks and Rec and how we want to recommend it as a cost saving measure, try not to hammer the point about timing. Let's say we could save 120,000. If we did that and we recommended that and the select board went through and did that now that we're in a time of transition,
Mhm.
we wouldn't have to ask for 120,000 as part of the override to fund fire. So it wouldn't even come
Plus
up.
120 and the 65,
Right,
70,000 Park and Rec, or they can redesign the department.
Right. So I'm asking in our recommendation to the select board, because now is apparently the time of transition for Parks and
Right.
Rec. Are we recommending that they make huge cuts and restructure the responsibilities of that department?
If they want to fund the other things that we want to fund, they're going to have to do that. It's not like a gray thing. That's what I'm trying to tell people. And I want people on TV to hear me. It is not a gray thing. It's very easy, actually.
It's basically if you want to fund the 3 people for the fire department now, those are some things they have to look at that need to be done.
I mean, we borrowed from Peter to pay Paul for the one guy. And we can't do that again.
Well, I understand, but the time is now
That's right.
because of Parks and Rec. So now, do we recommend now, for the financial health of the town of Hadley,
Mhm.
that the select board gut and restructure the Parks and Rec department?
I would vote for that.
I'd vote for that.
I would vote for that. And the the restructure of the health
Insur-
insurance for the
Right.
right. Yes, I would
Yes.
vote for that.
Okay.
And
I'm
maybe,
actually
and
in
maybe look at
agreement.
restructuring health insurance
I
across the
get what you're
board.
saying.
The
but-
discussion was first like as a plan B if the override doesn't work, we'll
Right,
do
that's
some
why
Parks
I
and Rec.
asked him.
That's why, because
Yeah,
the time's now, right? So
Yeah,
it's
the time is
yeah,
now.
Okay.
and the time is getting close to the 9 o'clock hour.
So that
too.
would be the suggestion, and then we need to get a solid, if you're gonna be at, I will go with you to the select board meeting, and Gabriel and I will ask them, can you give us a solid?
And I'll watch you on TV.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and I
On
won't watch that.
rerun, I hate watching myself on television, but, and ask them, are they going to support us if we come up and do all this work for an override? Because if they're not, why waste our time?
Well, and they need to put on their agenda what they're gonna do with our help to convince the people that they need an override. Because just
Right.
standing up there and going, we need an override is
No.
clearly not going to work.
I think informational things need to go out in the mail. We need to have an informational session. I mean, there's a lot of work, like you said, that needs to be done, but I also kind of feel to restructure, to make sure that we can support the fire department in some way. Those are the two things that we are looking at this point. If you can find anywhere else in this thing that you can cut money from, which is very,
Well, that's the problem. It's so thin
It's so
already.
thin.
it's so thin. But the other thing I did have a question, real quick, because I know everybody wants to leave. I know we were rushed into signing some transfers. And so I did have, I don't know if you all had a chance to look at these transfers. My concern is that we're able to transfer 6,000 from this budget, 4,000 from that budget.
Why did they have those in the first
Why
place?
did they have those in the first place?
Well, see, that's the point. With David not here, you know, he can't give you the
yeah.
details. Like, you know, oh well,
Right here.
this person didn't need that money because something happened. You know,
They didn't need all the money for snow plowing this year, but they have to allocate it.
yeah.
Yes, that's different. We're not,
But
whether.
that's where, but all of the budgets are that DPW has to have extra money in case they need it. But there's
Granted.
always DPW money coming back into the transferring.
But you know what street lighting is basically gonna be every year but I would think with all the solar panels that the town has, that we wouldn't even be charged for that stuff,
So
but.
I think we can put on our next agenda to ask David about some of these if we have concerns.
Yeah.
I was actually looking over that stack saying if you have a $18 million budget and at the end of the year, these are the only things you need to do to balance it
Right.
across accounts, that's
That's pretty
great.
decent.
That's
yeah.
great, but that wasn't it. And so if this is extra money that these departments, it's not even departments, it's like the health insurance, so we wanna
Well,
look at
wasn't a lot of
that.
it coming from?
North Hadley Hall.
I thought that we cut that budget.
thought that was
completely.
I
zero,
thought
yeah.
we did cut that budget, so that
I'm
was kinda
surprised it wasn't in
shocking
there.
to me.
Well, see, but the thing is,
Well, for the
without
new-
David here, we can't really. He has to address those and tell us what happened.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is we were kind of thrown into this without any information, and I didn't care for that. Pretty much.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I don't like.
let's go into
I
the
don't
corner,
like
sign these things
I don't
off.
like signing things when we have a tri-board meeting and then we're going to pull the finance committee out to do this.
Exactly.
So we're going to have to tell him he can't do that anymore.
We'll
Right.
make
So
sure
I
it's on our
guess
next agenda. Yeah.
that's kind of what I want to address,
Yeah.
the process of how this goes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I mean, if it was $3 million that we were talking about, then I would have like a huge issue, like, well, how
Yeah.
can we have $3 million at the end of the year that we can do this?
The other thing is, you know that mandate that we had for the flood, or not the flood, the runoff water? And it got
Yes.
pushed. What happened to that money? That was a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? I wonder what.
Where that went to?
Hmm.
That's a good question. So
Well,
those are all things that we need to put in a.
I mean, now that the vacations are going to start to be done, but I think in the future we need to have David here at the meetings. If he can't make it, if he's on vacation, we should move our meeting.
Well, yeah, and just to answer that, I mean, that's the whole idea behind free cash, right? Is all the money in accounts that didn't get used
Yeah,
up
so
at the
that
end
should
gets
be-
rolled over into free cash, certifying that we can
Now the
use
other,
it to balance
but the
our budget.
downside to that is you don't want departments to feel like if they don't spend it, they'll lose it, right? Because then
Right,
they're going to
which
start
is-
spending when they don't want, they really don't
Which
need
is why
to
the
spend it.
select board is taking the policy of reducing the amount of free cash that we factor into the budget year after year, so that we can trim these budgets down. Yeah, that's the exact sentiment
Can I
there.
explain one thing, because I know that you're all trying to figure out how departmental things work? One of the things that didn't work for me is that they put off the omnibus budget until October. And I had put in for that part-time program coordinator, and I had to wait from January, or from May, until October to get the yes or no. And by then, it was another some odd weeks, 2 weeks internal posting, and then paper, and then interviewing and hiring. So I never got my person in place until February 1st. And so the money that was allocated towards that person didn't get fully used.
So you had that left
So there was
over.
2,000 some odd dollars left over in my budget that I could have so used that person earlier. Oh my God.
Well,
I mean,
that's, the police station, I think, was another thing that we funded for additional officers, but we didn't get the money until, it wasn't approved till later, so there was extra
it
funds
was,
there for that.
yeah, they
as
didn't do
well.
it at the May annual town meeting. They put it off till the October town meeting, and it totally messed with both staffing and the budget.
Right. I don't know how we can change that, though.
But I just want you to know about it.
I'm sure it is
Well, yeah,
frustrating,
that's
but
why
I don't know how
when-
you can change
When you
that.
ask David about these things, he tells you like these details that happen. Well, this happened 6 months later, so we only needed 6 months but we allocated a year's worth of money.
Yeah.
Well, and this is another reason I kind of think that you need to have your own separate there needs to be a separate person just for the financial part of it and the budget of it. And take that away from, if anything, we need to get somebody who just deals with the monies and the budget. And David doesn't have that on his plate.
That was also recommended in the DLS general report
Right.
overview of the town of Hadley, but
You need to
it's a lesser
separate the
priority than
two.
IT and HR for sure.
Exactly, but if anything, if you can't get those other two things funding, it needs to be separated somehow. I vote to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
I second.
All in
Third.
favor?
Oh,
Aye.
aye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.